So I'm not Mr. Whoever. My name is Rajan Matthews, and I've been asked to fill in as moderator. So we welcome the panelists, and we'd like to start the discussions among our panelists in terms of understanding what the telecom sector, which we believe to be the backbone of the ICT efforts are. So let me go to the RIL much awaited rollout and services that are to begin. So can you give us a feel for what we should expect, what consumers should expect when RIL gets to roll out its digital network? Okay, so you're working very closely with RIL, RCom, Geo, and you're sharing spectrum. I understand you're also starting to share cell towers. So what would be the sort of combined impact, if you will, of both the brothers getting together in terms of what customers can expect to see as far as digital services and digital network?
Well, good afternoon. I would say that I am as much knowledgeable and informed about RIL and RCom collaboration as probably everybody is. Yes, both the companies are collaborating quite a bit. We are sharing networks and we are sharing towers, and that's all common knowledge. But I think the biggest impact which is going to happen is that when RIL Reliance Jio is able to cover 90% of the landmass of the country and the demographics of the country with 4G waves, that's where the real magic would probably begin. As we understand that, there are two types of fun here. One is low bandwidth, other is high bandwidth. On low bandwidth, we pretty much have all the coverage already available in most of the country. And the basic activities like internet browsing and information dissemination and gathering is all possible on 2G. And when it comes to 4G, the high band, that is the fun part of it. That's where the entertainment and high level of learning begins. So we have covered the first part. Country is very well covered by Bharti, by Reliance, and all the existing telcos. And the part two, which is the magic part, that has to begin. Let's wait for Reliance Jio.
So thank you. Moving over to Shekhar. Shekhar, Vodafone is again been investing very heavily in 3G, 4G networks. We've heard a lot of announcements in terms of cities that are coming online. So what should the customers experience again? What should they expect? What type of speeds are they going to see? What type of affordability? These are things that are going to be critical as far as ITC adoption. So anything that you can share with the audience on this?
So it's a very appropriate question. And while we are in this forum, the biggest question or challenge which we have as a citizen of this country is availability. Digital India is a program which probably has converged various initiatives right from e-governance era to now to M-governance. And the limited knowledge I have is that when we launched a national e-governance program, the adoption was limited because you require X amount of investment and Y amount of infrastructure. But in M-governance, it is your mobile feature phone which can enable a large citizen of the country to be connected with the rest of the world. As far as Vodafone is concerned, we are very keen partner with various initiatives of Government of India and various states. To give you an example, we recently enabled 2,000 gram panchayats in Rajasthan with a high-speed digital line to an extent of a panchayat having 8 Mbps, which is getting upgraded to enable video conferencing. In our own parlance, everybody has a right to create an acronym, so I have also created one, which is ICT for us is innovation, connectivity, and transformation. Today, while I travel across the country, I have the privilege to visit some rural India. We found that in one of the places, I was with the minister of a state in Gujarat, and he said that, tell me what you want. The gentleman, the lady said that no, we do not want hospital, we want a tower of a mobile operator. So that type of awareness today is. However, if you ask me in terms of Vodafone, there are two big initiatives which we are trying to enable the country and citizen like ours is health and education, which touches almost 120 billion population which we have. In addition to this, we have a global best practices which we are very willing to support. And we had a recent interaction with various IT secretaries. And as if there is a competition between each state to another state where they want to implement various M-governance and Digital India programs. For instance, National Rural Health Mission, where the mother and child tracking and ASHA worker, ANM, where the infant mortality rate has to be dramatically reduced. The digital literacy, where the distant learning through we have a web box through which a curriculum can be really imparted knowledge to various. So these are many biometric attendance system where you ensure that the teacher comes to the school and the student are there in the class. So if I have to summarize, the current evolution is that it is availability of knowledge, available and empowering the citizen to ensure that those informations are available to them on demand.
On demand. All right, Mr. Bhatnagar, you have been with the DOT for a good long while. You went to Oman and you've been involved with networks abroad, and you've come back and you had a very senior position as advisor at the DOT and now moved over to the foreign export side of the equation. So you've seen a lot of networks. What could we be doing better? You know, we've been hearing a lot of call drops issues, network of quality issues. What could the operators in India be doing better? What can the government be doing better in these areas in terms of a collaborative approach?
You see, I would like to, because the type of the issues which we are having in India, they are prevalent in other countries also. It is not that the call drops are happening in India, only in India. In UK also, Ofcom, they had carried out a recent study, and they found that on an average, because they did the customer survey also, and they found 5%, 4 to 5% call drops people were facing. On an average, over a period of a week or something. Here the frequency is on the higher side. When I was with the regulator in Oman, it was the year in 2008. So there also, I got many complaints were coming in because from the palace, the chairman of the regulatory authority got the feedback that, okay, the call drops were there at this area, that area. I tried to investigate that aspect. Then I found that the problem is not confined to one area, it is a sort of a systematic problem was there. I tried to go for a solution. In fact, I will, because you see, you are from representing the cellular industry and is also representing the Vodafone. In fact, 2 years back, I had been to Vodafone also, and Mr. Balaji had just taken over. And at the time, the call drop had not come as a very, very serious issue in India, but then I was feeling the call drops are happening. Then I tried to tell what exactly was done by me in Oman, and the net result was there was an improvement of call completion rate by 10%. So what actually I did, as the regular practice in India also, in other countries also, for call drop, what we are having is for 2% of the sites, we are having a parameter. You see over a period of the reporting period, it could be 1 month, it could be 3 months. It varies from country to country. But in all countries, what they do it for the averaging, they do it averaging for the whole of the licensing area, covering all the BTSs which are there. So if in the state of Rajasthan, you are having, say, 10,000 BTSs are there. So the call drop is their average for 10,000 BTS over a period of 1 month or 3 months, and that too for all times of the day. Because traffic congestion may not be really taking place during the night time, it may be taking place during the busy hour in the evening. Say you're driving on the ring road, there's a traffic jam at South Extension, for example, you're stuck up in jam for 15 minutes. At that time, you try to make use of the time, you try to make calls. Same is the case with other people who are stuck up in the traffic. So the traffic as compared to the normal traffic, it jumps by a factor of 3 to 4 times in that segment area. And as a result of that, at that time, people feel the call droppings because there's too much traffic is there. The network is not designed to handle that type of traffic. What I done in Oman was for all the BTSs, they were subjected to over a period of 14 days. Measurements were taken at hourly intervals for all the 24 hours. So 336 observations were there for each BTS. And then in the matrix, all the cells where the call droppings were above 2%, they were put into the red. Red marking was done for that. Then the classification, the comparison was done for all the BTS sites. So the sites where 75% of the cells were in the red, they were put in one category. 60 to 75 was put in the second category. 45 to 60 was in the third category, like that. So in that way, I was able to identify the cell sites where the incidences of call drops, more call drops are happening. And then the operators were told, first, the initial reaction of the operators was, we are meeting the regulatory requirement of 2%. We are meeting so there's no issue at all. But then we are trying to tell them, okay, you also are feeling the problem, the call drops. So though you are meeting the average of 2% across the network, you are able to meet, but there are certain sites, and at certain hours of the day, that sites are experiencing the problem. This is what the public in India is also experiencing. What has actually happened, you see, all the mobile operators, most of the mobile operators, they have outsourced this activity to another agency who is doing the maintenance for them. And as a result of that, if you have defined a target, okay, this is the target required to be met. So you are meeting that target, so no one further is going down into the more details. And as a result of that, some of the sites which are really having the problem, they're not identified. So in India also, we can try to have a sort of an audit can be carried out on the network by the operators. And if in fact some support is required, even I can provide some support also how it can be done. I can provide more detailed explanation. Incidentally, possibly I may be having one of the observation which I had taken. In case it is available, then I can. No, possibly it is not there in this folder.
So I think what we're saying is that the Honorable Minister of Communications was right. You don't want drop calls, then you've got to have sites. If you want...
you see the call drop, main reason for that, you see, at certain hours of the day, because as far as the radio network engineering is concerned, you can dimension for a particular inputs which have been given to you. But in a mobile network, the situation is changing dynamically. And at many instances of at hours of the day, whatever capacity you have designed, you are going above that particular capacity. Your network is not able to handle that. So one possibility could be that there may be a need to add more sites, but that is a long-term arrangement. You cannot do it. Second could be that there could be, I don't know, the sharing, of course, is not there. Intra-circle roaming, etc. You see that is not there. If that also is permitted, could be a possibility of traffic from one network getting transferred to the second network. We have to think of ways to how to come out with a solution.
So, so Sanjay, some comments that...
I just wanted to add to Bhatnagarji what you just said. Yes, you are right. This issue of call drops is there because of, as you said, it's a very dynamic situation, and radio engineering is set the way it is set. But at the same time, we will have to probably also look for technological solutions which are coming from the IT side of it. There was a real example. We were doing a small project for a manufacturing site. They wanted to do some R&D on their machines, and some 500 machines were running simultaneously and churning out data. So they suggested a solution on this M2M IoT basis, and a SIM had to go in each of these machines with a modem, and the nearest tower that we had, the tower got choked because there was not enough bandwidth on there. And then, this rethinking started. We adopted a Bluetooth solution. We hired an IT agency. So through that Bluetooth solution, we made machines talk to another. So one machine throwing data to another, and another to another, and finally we managed the entire thing on 7 channels. So, just adding to the possible solutions that we can look at, because this problem is only going to aggravate.
You're talking on the voice side. Now, what's going to happen on the data side is even going to be more challenging, right? We're talking about petabytes, right? Already, folks like Cisco are using another term called exabytes. And yeah, an exabyte is one followed by 27 zeros. You can do the math, right? So if you have to keep up with that type of data, and we know how to design voice networks, right? 500 minutes, nowhere in any part of the world does anybody exceed this. But when you go to data networks, a couple of things that are notified. One, you can never tell what is the peak load because you don't know what the file size is that somebody is going to download or upload, right? And the other thing is that for the consumer is now faced with a strange situation which they haven't been faced with, in that you can have a prepaid account, 95% do, you turn on your phone and you leave it there, you've never used it, and all of a sudden, $25 is gone, right? And you call the call center and says, my gosh, what happened? And, on the voice side, of course, it's calling party pays, right? The guy who calls you. But on the data, both sides will have to pay, right? So these are new challenges when we talk about customers being educated, customers having an experience. When we move over to data networks, there are going to be some challenges. So some comments?
Rajan, thanks. That is, it is an evolving industry, and it's very, very tumultuous times these days, and very, very different kind of expectations from this industry, and very, very different kind of data which is coming up. Yes, as I said, one is the technological solution that we have to find out. At the same time, I'll just give you a small example. It's not only about the issues related with the kind of data which is traveling through the networks. It is the kind of spying that is happening on us. We were in a meeting with a small company in Noida, and that is an offshoot of an American company, and they are doing a very wonderful thing. What they're doing is that whenever you are watching TV in your home, and every TV channel is running on a particular frequency, and your smartphone, on which you have downloaded hundreds of applications, they have already a lot of Trojans inside this, a lot of small agent softwares. They exactly know which channel you are watching. And when there is a Skoda ad running at 8:55 in the evening, the ads are booked in such a manner, that's what he told me, that at 8:55 there will be a Skoda ad running at most of the channels. And exactly at 8:55.03 second, your camera switches on, it takes your photo, because these are very high resolution cameras, and it reads your eye, and whether it is dilating after watching that ad or it is contracting. And if it is dilated, then you probably liked the ad. And the next day, when you're going to Google something, then the first ad you will see is a Skoda running there. That's what they're doing to you. Now, any ideas on this?
No. Absolutely no idea.
So, we're getting into a strange realm because, when you get into data networks and you get into smartphones, this is precisely the issue. The amount of information that consumers voluntarily give up because of applications that you may download, even knowingly or unknowingly, things that come embedded in existing applications that you've put in, right? What should we be looking at in terms of privacy? Mr. Bhatnagar, again, from a policy perspective, we haven't really addressed the issue of privacy. We start talking about net neutrality, that's putting the onus on the operators and those who own the networks. But what about privacy considerations? What type of responsibilities should consumers be experiencing? What disciplines do consumers need to adopt in order to protect themselves? Any ideas from a privacy perspective?
I think on this particular issue, I may not be able to offer too much comments. But another issue which you had raised previously relating to the tariffs, for example, you see, because a lot of things are relevant to that element also. In voice, we used to have two type of tariffs. One for the normal time, and second, it used to be a reduced tariff during the night hours. So possibly for the data segment also, we could, because as for the traffic conditions in the network as concerned, it varies with the time. So each operator can carry out the traffic studies, because whatever network he has designed, it remains same. So if he's at many hours of the day, the utilization of the network is of the order of 10%, 20%. what possibly could be done to encourage the flow of the traffic. He could have his zero tariff also for some hours of the night, for example. Another reduced, you see, because in fixed phones, 1/4, half, and normal 3 tariff ranges used to be there. So possibly we could think of something similar for the data services also. So we can have a higher, which we can call as the normal tariff, and then reduce, and another one reduce, even it could be zero tariff also.
So you're saying, let's go for zero tariffs, right? Let's bring back, free basics, and let's not have all of this stuff, because you're saying, look, we've got to connect 1 billion people. There's a lot of this population that's going to be economically challenged, and so there is a role to be had for, offering these types of next to free type services. So comments from the operator side as well?
Another thing also which I would like to suggest is, you see, as far the USO fund is concerned, it is having lots and lots of money which is not getting utilized. Why cannot be to encourage the broadband services in rural areas? At least the traffic which is getting generated from the rural areas, because the BTS can be identified that is physically located in rural areas. The government could subsidize the applications in the rural areas through the USO funding to the operators. That could be one possible, a new possible solution.
Okay, from the operator side, any?
So this free tariff, free lunch and all, I do not know how much is sustainable, but the only similarity or comparison I can have that I wish the similar thought process government has while they put the spectrum on auction. That's one. And second is that, my limited experience is that the usage in terms of MOU or RPMB for data is actually growing dramatically in rural India. And I'm sure this forum is related to how to ensure that these rural India people are empowered, connected, and available. For instance, a mobile company operator like us, we create airtime and we sell airtime. And the infrastructure eats away the majority portion of our investment, which is also like a perennial river which requires to be funded as many times the technology gets refreshed. However, we are uniquely poised. The population is actually a blessing in disguise, where you have enough and more for next 10 years' time that it is up to you how many BTSs you are able to raise. In recent past, I had a discussion with a few of the bureaucrats, and they mentioned that the right of the way, there is no cost. The cost is restoration of digging. So Indian Telegraph Act says that there will be no right of the way, and it is up to the limited purview of the district collector. However, the position when it was handed over, the person who has digged it, they are supposed to make it good that. But it is impossible to really ensure that we put on a fiber across the various remotest of the remote. Now, as sir mentioned, USO fund, I have no idea, but somebody told me that it is around close to 50,000 crores, which is not being utilized. If it is true, and when Ravi Shankar used to be there, he was the custodian of USO fund, and when he went to Uttarakhand, he mentioned that I could not utilize the fund. But what has happened is over a period of time, the name has changed from Bharat Broadband to Bharat Net and all those. I have not seen any other, please, I am not a BJP or Congress guy. I am a very simple citizen of this country. But I have never seen such an atmosphere ever in our country where there's enormous amount of willingness to bring change. And this change can be possible when each and every citizen of this country is participating. And the only way to participate in such a massive geography which we handle is through digital. And therefore, we operator, we have a business case. It makes business sense to connect the last citizen of the country. The enablement in terms of a little better policy would help. However, basis various cases, basis business case, we are still going on the remotest of the remote. We are participating with the World Bank. We are participating with Melinda and Bill Gates. And especially education and health, I don't think there is any bottleneck. I was listening to some of the distinguished speaker before. I think today Indian government is as knowledgeable and as frank any other corporate which we have. I don't find
using it for a long time, those numbers get deactivated and those numbers are assigned to somebody else. And second is, if I have to move into an area where my current provider is not available, so I definitely have to switch to another provider. And in that case, but I want to retain my number because my number is connected to a lot of government initiatives. But I am not able to maintain that number, in a recent case, because of these two practical problems. That one number I had was, is a prepaid number, which I suddenly realized that not being utilized for more than 6 months, it was deactivated, whereas it was a very, very premium number. I obtained it in around 87 and 88, not in 98 and 99s. And again, the other number
I got your question, and let me answer in three parts. First is that I'm very confident that national mobile number portability is up and running without a flaw. So regardless wherever you are, all operator like us, Vodafone, Airtel, Idea, Reliance, would have network. If not, then they will have a ICR, or they would have a handover normally to BSNL. You'll never lose that if you go into mobile number portability. Other is that if you really speak to somebody for instance, I can talk about Vodafone. We have stores, Vodafone mini stores. You walk in there, there'll be solution available. What I can think of the curve is that we can give you a very subsidized annual rental plan. Imagine that there are people who travel, go to US or UK abroad for 2 years, 3 years, but when they come back during vacation, they would like to use the local number, and they are able to retain it. So I have not come across that serious problem, but you may like to try.
So this is actually with relevance to, I was speaking to one very senior member of DITI, and they shared us that, because of this, that people are not able to maintain that number. They are not able to communicate the messages of amounts being transferred to their accounts and all. So if, as a CIO from the industry, we can take up this matter with the telecoms and like this can be.
So then let me just clarify. I think there's about over 200 million customers that have opted for MNP over the last couple of years. So I don't think in terms of the mechanics, there is an additional complexity in India. Nowhere else in the world do you have 8 to 12 operators operating in 22 circles, all right, with a separate ILD licensee, an NLD licensee, and 2 MNP operators, right? So operators have to start dipping into 2 databases, sync up, all of these types of things. Now, with regard to your issue of the retention of the number, please, when we went to the DOT and asked for numbers, we were told, listen, clean up your database. One of the things that we were asked to do was, look, if a number has not had any activity for 60 days, you ought to disconnect it and reuse the number because we're not about to start giving you new numbers. So part of the challenge was a directive from the DOT for us to start using our numbers more effectively and efficiently. So that is why we have to abide by the 60-day no-use disconnect issue. So with that, any other questions? So yes, please. Yeah, there it is.
If somebody could throw some light on the problems of call drops. That is a problem that doesn't seem to go away.
Call drops.
So although I believe there is some court case going on, so I will not make a very flamboyant statement, but as a citizen of this country, not as an operator, my experience is that in the morning people talk about EMF problem, in the afternoon they talk about call drop, or in the evening they talk about tariff. Now all the 3 things cannot go together. I'll give an example. If you go to airport, around 4 square kilometer of area, you cannot put a BTS tower, not even the cow, not even the mobile tower, because it is adjacent to cantonment.
Defense.
There are many such areas, despite the Honorable Minister issued a written request to each and every state government asking them to allow telecom service provider to put their towers in government building. Because these government buildings are in all strategic locations, and we were very keen to do that. Apart from 2 states, we did not get any joy from any other states. And that's the problem. We are ready to put towers. It costs us money, but at the same time, it brings a good amount of service delight.
That is all right. Just one opinion to that. Does it have any issue regarding, people who live in high rises? As you go up higher, the higher the floors, the more the call drops. Any solution to that?
Go ahead.
So, like Gurgaon is the area where we experimented. We call it in-building solutions. Most of the high-rises complexes, before they get constructed, we terminate our fiber, basis which we put the IBS up to the top floor. But the quality of signal and the quality of voice and data definitely gets impacted. So it's a work in progress, but our effort is ultimately, if any subscriber is able to use our connectivity, we get some revenue. So it is not that by design we don't do this. There are compulsions which is beyond our control, which ensures that you people have this complaint.
Okay, thank you very much. Our time is up, and so let me hand back over to the organizers. Thank you very much.